Hello, hello. You're listening to the Better Workday podcast with me, Niamh Moynihan. I'll do that later. I'll decide that after lunch. I come back to that tomorrow. Have you found yourself saying that about different things at work? Look, when it comes to everything from moving meetings to making big decisions on projects, I think we're all guilty of putting things off sometimes. But if we put those things off too often, if we procrastinate on our decisions, it can lead to time pressure and unnecessary stress in our work days. And you and I both know that is not something that I want us to have. And so today I want to talk about decision making and procrastination, both of which are big topics on their own. And I just want to talk about the intersection between the two, which is when we just don't seem to make our decisions, when we seem to put that part of the process off, okay? And look, there's a few things in it. And the reason I wanted to cover it is because I think in the workday, we make decisions all day long and they're small a lot of the time. Will I move a meeting or not? Will I reply to that email or not? Like those kind of things. And because they're such small moments, I think it's easy just to kind of dismiss them as part of the day. But they're often the opportunities for us to make the biggest improvement in our workday. Because if each of them is currently causing you friction, imagine what it'd be like if they all instead flowed more easily. Like all those little catch points in your day, maybe being removed or reduced, could really improve how you move through your workday. And I just think that would be fantastic. So that's why I think this is a good topic to cover and why I really wanted to kind of get into it in this episode. So look, I'm going to talk about a few different things, and I'm also going to share 3 different ideas you can use to make your decision making more immediate. So not to have things sitting on your desk for so long, all right? But before I get into it, I want to, I suppose, talk about a few different things that cause us to not make decisions. And the first is decision fatigue. Now, you might already have heard of this term, and what it means is throughout the day, we make so many decisions, and every time we make one, it uses some of our cognitive resources. It takes a mental toll. And if we are bombarded with decisions, then we get mentally tired. And so then when it comes to, after lunchtime or late in the afternoon, into the evening, when it comes to making a decision, we're either too tired to make it, or maybe we make a poor choice, or we revert to our habits, to our default decisions, all right? And it's important to say that, from a work perspective, there are, as I said, so many decisions during the day, but there's also all the decisions we have to make before we even get to work. And, we are just one person. It's not like you have a home version of yourself and a work version of yourself. And, we have separate minds, that can be managed for both. I mean, if you wear yourself out cognitively or mentally in the morning before you even get to work, that's going to carry into your working day, right? And so, as I suppose a society, we are bombarded with decisions from the minute we wake up. Whether or not to get up, I suppose, is the first one. What to wear, what to eat, what time to leave for work. And then if you kind of jump into social media or apps on your phone, there's decisions in there. Will you scroll or not? Will you like or not? Will you comment or not? I mean, honestly, it's just a lot. It's a lot. And that takes its toll. And so decision fatigue is something which I kind of know I'm feeling it if it's maybe lunchtime in the day and I already feel like I can't make a single more decision. Like I'm done when it comes to important choices on the day. And if that resonates with you, then hopefully some of the ideas I'm going to share will help you manage that. All right. And actually, you might want to go back to one of my more recent episodes on doing a digital reset as well, if you find that's one of the causes of decision fatigue in your life. So then there's other sources of procrastination as well. So it's not just that we're, mentally tired from all the decisions that we make. There are all the other reasons why we might not want to do something. So for example, it could be a fear of getting it wrong, making the wrong decision, and that's a huge thing. Now, interestingly enough, many years ago, I was listening to a podcast called, I want to say, the Life Coach School podcast. Now, I won't be able to find the episode, I'd say. I'll have a quick look to see if I can put the link in the notes because it was so long ago. But the host shared this idea that when it comes to decision making, it's good to imagine two best case scenarios to, I suppose, choose from, as opposed to kind of doing a pros and cons. And I think that's a fantastic idea. But I also think realistically in the workday, we are worried that, there's a right decision and a wrong decision, and we don't want to make the wrong one. The other cause of procrastination could be, feeling that you don't have enough information to make the decision, which is also very important. Again, we don't want to make the wrong one. Or, how the decision will be received. So even if it is the right call, even if you are making the right choice, will you get backlash from other people? And so if this is something which you find yourself dealing with, a good question to ask is, what is the best decision I can make at this time with the information that I have? Okay. So unless your job is literally saving a life, and I know that obviously that is some people's jobs, but for most desk-based knowledge workers, we are not saving lives. So unless that's the situation, there's usually some wiggle room or an option to change direction again after a decision is made. So if it's procrastination because again of fear of getting it wrong or fear of, the response, just making the best decision you can at this time is really all you can do, because like nobody's going to get it right all the time. There have been loads of decisions I've made that, probably haven't been the best ones, but like I'm still here. You know what I mean? Like things are still moving forward, things still get done. The whole place didn't collapse just because I didn't make the perfect choice 3 months ago on a certain item. And I think really on that note, we have to be okay with getting it wrong sometimes and seeing that the place won't fall apart. That either you can correct it or somebody else can correct it, or, the impact isn't as bad as it could have been, or any of those things. We need to see that, because otherwise we'll just get into a state of paralysis. We won't make any decisions, or our anxiety will just go through the roof. And I mean, there's enough things to be stressed about in the world not to mind adding this to our list. So if you are procrastinating, I would just kind of take a look at that and see if you can try to focus on making the best decision you can instead of making the perfect decision. Now, I have 3 strategies to help, I suppose, from the decision fatigue perspective, and just to make it easier for you to make decisions quickly. All right. And this won't apply to every element of your workday, of course, but it definitely applies to a good few. And the first one is to make the decision once. One way to reduce the decision fatigue and all of that is to turn daily decisions into a predetermined routine. And this could be everything from, what you're going to have for your breakfast to what you're going to have for your lunch, or I suppose in the work case, what work you're going to do when. And this shows up, I suppose, in 2 different ways when I work with people. The first is to have a specific block of time every week for a certain task. So you've already decided that's when I'm going to do the work. For example, Friday mornings, I always do my admin. That is the time I do my admin. I've made that decision once. I don't have to make it again. And that's great. It's kind of like a set it and forget it. And, what's important about that though is that you then trust that you made the right decision. So when it comes to the Friday, that I'm not second guessing myself, should I change that around or not? You just have to kind of let it sit and let it be your routine until you find it's no longer working for you. All right. The other thing you can do is, if having specific blocks of time isn't realistic, maybe your role is highly responsive, maybe your calendar isn't, that free and you can't do that, is to theme your days. So to focus on a particular theme or area of your work on different days a week. So for example, I do most of my writing and most of my podcast scripting, all that kind of creative work. I do most of that on a Monday, most of the time. All right. And again, that's not to say other things don't happen on a Monday, but it's just if I'm thinking, oh, what will I do? Then it's Monday, I'm going to do one of those tasks. All right. It's a really nice way, I suppose, to again reduce friction in your day and to reduce the decision making around your tasks, around time management, around what will I do next. So I absolutely love that one. It's very popular when it comes to time management, and for good reason. And if you think about the fact that, like, if you've made those decisions once, then that's one less, I suppose, strain on your resources during the day, so the other decisions can move along more easily. Now, not everything, of course, can be set it and forget it, okay? Like there is going to be variation in your workday. And I'm against having too much structure, too rigid structure in most desk-based roles because we have to be responsive. And if we're that strict on ourselves, it'll snap at some point. So we have to be able to be flexible. And I find the idea of if-then scenarios really helpful for this. So this is a second strategy. It's to take a look at your week and decide in advance if something happens, how you'll respond. Now, athletes do this a lot. So they imagine their perfect race or their perfect event, and then they think through what could go wrong. And if it goes wrong, how will I recover? How will I respond? And I love that. So let's say coming back to work, it could be if 3 people decline the meeting, then I'll reschedule it, and it's you again taking the space before the thing happens to think through what will or how will I react, or what will I say, or what will I do? It does two things. I think when we think these things through ahead of time, we're more logical, we're less emotional. We can look at them, I suppose, from a place of calm as opposed to responding in a stressful mode. So they're probably better decisions. And then, of course, if something does happen, we can adapt and respond more quickly because we already have an idea of what we're going to do. If this is one that you like, a good idea is to write your if-then scenarios at the back of a notebook. Like, so if you keep a notebook for your notes at work or a diary or a planner, whatever it is you use the back page and just keep a list of your if-then scenarios and maybe keep them updated as you go along. And what this does is it gives you the benefit of, proactive thinking, but also lessons learned, so like if you make a choice or make a decision and it doesn't go as planned, then, you're going to write down, well, if that happens again, then I'm going to do something different. All right. So we're really making the most, I suppose, out of our ability to continuously improve. So I love that one. The if then scenarios, I use them an awful lot. Sometimes they're written down, sometimes I've just kind of thought of them mentally, but either way, it's really, really good. And the third idea for me is to batch your decision making. So batching your work is a very popular concept, again, in productivity and time management, this idea of doing similar tasks at the same time. And look, that's for a few reasons. It decreases your cognitive load because you're not switching between very different kinds of work. It allows you to get into a bit of a rhythm and a routine. So there's lots of benefits to it. And the same can be applied to the decision-making piece, right? It's a really good thing. So what you could do is, there'll be 3 steps to this. The first thing is you would set aside some time, maybe once or twice a week, for 30 minutes to say, I'm going to make any outstanding decisions during this block of time. And the nice thing about this is you can schedule it for a time that you have a lot of energy. Most people that I work with have more energy in the mornings than in the afternoons, all right? So if they were to schedule a decision-making block and schedule it for the morning, it means that you're making decisions when you are less fatigued. So already we're winning, right? So that's the first thing that you do. And this also gives you peace of mind that, like, if things are building up, you're like, well, I'm going to clear everything out anyway during this block. So that's also good. When you get to your block of time, then I want you to take a look across your desk and see, well, what decisions do I have to make? And, another cause of procrastination is sometimes we just forget about something. Like if you have a lot going on at work, there might be a task or a decision that slips through the cracks. So taking this time to, consider everything on your to-do list, everything in your email, everything on your calendar, and say, what decisions need to be made here? It means that you're more likely to catch those things, okay, so that they don't go unforgotten until it's too late. And I like that. I like the idea of giving myself a bit of space to make sure I've got everything covered. And then the third thing, or the third step rather, is that we'd make similar decisions together. And what I mean by this is, if there's a lot of meetings to be moved around, do them all together first. If you have to make a few decisions on a project, look at that project, all together. And what's good about this is, again, it reduces their cognitive load because you're tackling similar types of work, but also it means you're more considerate of the knock-on impact on each item. Again, the meetings example is great. If you're looking at rescheduling multiple meetings, you can see how that's going to unfold across the week, as opposed to just kind of doing one and then kind of coming back to another one in a while and, not being able to kind of see that bigger picture. So I like that. All right. And this approach means that even if your week gets hairy, even if there's stuff that piles up, even if things don't go to plan, once or twice a week, You're just clearing the decks and saying, look, I'm not procrastinating on these decisions anymore. I'm getting them done and I'm moving it forward. So now it's over to you. I mean, there's 3 strategies there to help you stop procrastinating around decisions. And I'd love you to try just one in the next week. Now you'll notice I haven't got into the effectiveness of the decision. Okay. And, what could compromise the quality of your decision, especially more important decisions. And if you're interested in that, there's a great book. It's called Tune In by Nuala Walsh. Now, I've read other books on decision making that I'm not going to recommend. I loved this one. I actually read it on my Kindle when flying to Tenerife. Was it last year? It must have been. And I didn't expect, to read the whole thing because I was in holiday mode, but it was so well written. I read the whole thing. I read it on the flight over. I read it, on and off during my break, and I read it on the flight back. It was great. Really easy to read, really digestible, and really good in terms of discussing the kind of things that impact the quality of our decisions. So again, that's not what I wanted to focus on in this episode, but if you want to get into it, that's the book I suggest you read. So coming back to the 3 options I gave you now, if you do decide to try one, I would love to hear from you. All right. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn. As I've mentioned recently, I'm back on Instagram with the podcast. The Better Workday podcast is the Instagram account over there. You could drop me a message. Just let me know and let me know, how it goes for you. All right. Because as I said at the start of this episode, moving things forward, more efficiently and not letting them sit on our desks, that can make a huge difference to your workday. It can really help things flow more easily, especially when things are busy. So I would love that for you. Thank you for joining me on this week's episode of the Better Workday podcast. If you enjoyed the show, the best way you can support me is by giving the podcast a rating, leaving a comment, sharing this episode and subscribing wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss the next episode. For more information and to sign up for my mailing list, head over to abetterworkday.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll be back in your ears next week. Until then, stay well and have a better workday.